mean for crypto and for Solana? No hype, no shilling. Pure signals straight from the experts. This is the big picture. GM everyone, welcome back to the big picture brought to you by Solana Floor, where we unpack the intersection of macro, of crypto, and of course the capital flows that most of CT ignores. I'm joined, as always, by the wonderful Thomas Bahamas from just across the pond. GM Thomas, how are we doing?
GM, doing fine this morning. How about yourself?
Absolutely good. It's afternoon for me here. Very, very hot day. But you know what? I'm super excited for the conversation that we're going to have today because things have been blowing my mind on chain. I have to come clean here. I'm going to start with a bit of a confession. I did not see this coming and totally faded it, to be honest with you. Crypt crossed $1 billion in trading volume. That's not market cap. It's the real volume. People are putting trading cards on chain. You've got Pokemon, One Piece, sports cars, Magic, the whole shebang. It's on Solana. There's tokenized custody, instant liquidity. We're going to get into the redemption side of it today as well. Just quickly, some interesting stats. They've got I think tens of millions of graded cards at this point, I think. 215,000 packs have been opened. They've crossed $50 million in cumulative revenue. And again, this is a category that maybe 6 months ago, I completely discounted for a number of reasons.
Yeah, I can't believe that you missed it. But also, you know, it's hard to look around and not see what Collector's Crypt is doing, right? So it's extremely exciting. And, you know, one thing that kind of comes to my mind, you know, when it comes to Pump.fun, they proved that one launchpad could really own the entire token creation space. And, you know, what does that mean when one collectibles platform owns all the authentication, custody, liquidity, and redemption for all of these cards? So I think that this is a really exciting framing, and this is a big new narrative that we're looking at.
Yeah, well, in hindsight, it should have been obvious to us, but I think people are slowly starting to wake up to that reality that you're describing, and it's being reflected also in the token price. Now, another admission: when I saw Logan Paul, he sold one of his Pokemon cards for $16.5 million. I thought, this is crazy. This is a top signal. Surely this TCG mania is going to end at some point, and I was very wrong.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I saw that as well, and I didn't get it at first, and now I can't avoid it, right? It's all over CT, it's all over Solana, it's everywhere. So who better to give us all of the information and to really get to the bottom of this than the CEO of Collector Crypt, Toumas Holmberg. I think he's going to be breaking down exactly, what he's built, where it goes, and what on-chain collectibles really mean in a post-NFT, post-meme coin mania world.
We have a lot of questions, certainly. I have questions. Thomas, you have questions. I'm sure our audience members also have questions. So if you do, please drop them in the chat and we'll do our best to raise them. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Toumas Holmberg, co-founder and CEO of Collector Crypt. Toumas, welcome to The Big Picture. How are you?
Doing really well, thank you. Just enjoying my morning coffee and a beautiful day. So just very, very excited to be here and very excited to meet you guys and talk about our platform.
Good morning.
Excellent.
And welcome.
Well, thanks for making time to chat to us this morning. First off, I have to say, you're drinking a coffee there. I owe you a coffee because I was telling Thomas just now, I did not see this coming. We mentioned some of the sort of more important milestones there. Congratulations on $1 billion of volume, $50 million of revenue. I mean, you essentially flipped Pump.fun to become the #1 revenue generating business on Solana, which is huge news. Very, very few businesses have ever achieved that. But before we dive into all of those milestones and what's next, we like to start with the big picture on the show, as you can imagine. So let's start really broad. What is your high-level read of the global state of collectibles right now? I know the IRL world is a little bit crazy. And why are people going so mad for Pokemon cards and other collectibles as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think we are, collectibles have always been a very interesting field because one, they have quite a bit of friction. There aren't like analysts out there, hedge funds, this kind of stuff. It's really retail people and kind of like quasi-institutional people who are dipping their fingers into it, doing this trading. It's not an efficient market by any means, by any capital asset pricing model. You can't apply a beta to cards. And so it has a lot of like, Wild West features to it that make it exciting for, somebody who's like, I started trading cards when I was probably 13 years old. And it gives you the kind of feeling of hustle. Like if you have your binder of cards, you're going to a place, you're going to trade. You're going to try to trade up. You're going to try to get stuff that you want for your collection. You're going to try to make a little bit of money on each trade and kind of chip yourself way up. It's, a 13-year-old kid has a hard time doing that with stocks on the NASDAQ, right? Even if their parents give them a brokerage account, it's very hard to do that. So in many ways, a lot of the, I know you guys have talked about meme coins a lot. A lot of the things that make meme coins exciting for crypto users are the same things that make card trading exciting for retail users. The reason why trading cards have value is a few different points. One, like obviously people play with these cards, right? So you have the cards, you play with them. There's usually variants of the cards, and I'm talking about both Pokemon, Magic, and One Piece here. You have variants that are cheap, right? You can get a $2 card, $1 card and put it in your deck, and that helps you play the deck. But there's also status, right? So you show up to your local trading card store and you have a deck and you have all the cheap versions of all cards, that doesn't really give you status. But if you have your whole deck blinged out with all of these special art foils and all this kind of stuff, it means it kind of gives you some more street credibility that, hey, this person is good at something, right? This person is either really good at trading and is able to trade up to get to these big cards. This person is really good at playing. Maybe they've won these cards in tournaments and they've been able to, win a lot of product and get their deck looking like it's amazing. Or three, they just have a lot of money, right? And they buy the cards. And so, this idea of status for these premier cards and that kind of stuff, that's ingrained in people when they are playing these things at the local game store. And, as those same people grow up, it's kind of interesting. The people who play trading card games when they're young, it's not, I'm not saying that, they are smarter or this or that. They just kind of view the world in a little different way. And those are the same people that might become consultants or attorneys or run businesses, because it involves that kind of strategy aspect. It involves the negotiation and hustle of being able to trade the cards. So a lot of those skills turn into skills that when you're adult tend to make you have higher wealth. So these same people, when they're playing these cards as kids, they go to college, they go to uni, they probably, hang up their game playing sleeves. They're not playing in tournaments anymore, but now they're making, $600,000 a year as a lawyer. And they're like, oh man, there's a part of my heart that I still feel, right? So I have some cards that I opened up in 1993 that, it's like an instant dopamine hit, because these cards are literally the same cards I was using when I was playing in tournaments in New York and Magic the Gathering. And I could pick up a card and I could remember a moment from there. And it's free happiness and joy. I could pick that card up one time a day and I could be happy and joyful, and that cost me nothing. Right. And that's what that nostalgia is, and that's how it feels. And then of course, I still go to meetups and I still go and play with friends, and I pull out some of these cards and I play these things, and it's really relaxing. It's my happy place. So, I mean, I'm on the side where I'm a collector. I'm also, an entrepreneur. I've been in blockchain for a while. And so I totally understand how these pieces fit together, but because there's such a strong emotional aspect to it, the difficult thing that I've had is trying to, for somebody who hasn't been a trading card person, for somebody who hasn't been involved in blockchain, who hasn't, it's hard for me to give them that same, I don't know how to give them that bridge in empathy to see what it does for me. But I'm obviously very excited about it, and I love it.
Yeah, I can feel your passion from that that anecdote. I mean, pulling a card in 1993 and using it. What are we now, 2026? That's pretty crazy. Something you said there caught my attention, though. The sort of inner entrepreneurial spirit that many of these people have from a young age. Perhaps they don't know it. I'm wondering, though, to myself, how many of the friends that I grew up with Pokemon cards and other collectibles are now entrepreneurs, or where in the world they might be. But that's a very interesting thought exercise. One thing that I want to ask you as well, you mentioned a couple of the types of cards that are available. Obviously, in the sort of real world, if you will, there's a very, very long list. But on chain at the moment with Collector Crypt, is it limited to Pokemon, One Piece, Magic, and sports cards, I would imagine?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say that we're not limited to any category. We just kind of follow where the community sends us. So we started off with we actually, because I'm a big Magic guy, and Joe, one of our early employees, is a Yu-Gi-Oh guy. We started off with a ton of Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh, and then we started interacting with people, and they're like, Pokemon, and obviously we knew Pokemon was the biggest trading card brand out there, and so most of our card acquisition has gone into Pokemon, and most of our community building and ecosystem building has gone into Pokemon, and that was the initial thing. And then we started hearing from our community. One Piece, great, tons of IP around it, lots of excitement. The card game's a lot of fun. Tournament scene's picking up. So then all of a sudden we're finding buyers for One Piece and that, right? So we kind of go where our community asks us to go. We're thinking about kind of what the next steps are. We have a few community members who are collecting Dragon Ball. We're hearing some inbound interest for Lorcana. But once those things start to take off, we have a great Rolodex. We know who to call to buy cards at mass. And when I say at mass, this week will probably be our top buying week ever for Pokemon. We're going to probably buy around $3 million worth of cards this week alone.
Crazy.
I know Thomas is itching to ask you how exactly that process of acquiring the cards, sourcing them and then sort of putting them in the vault actually works. We've been discussing it, trying to figure it out. But before we get there, we mentioned in the intro that I think the most expensive Pokemon card ever sold was Logan Paul's $16.5 million or something, and he sold that to Anthony Scaramucci's son, AJ. What is the most expensive card that's ever been sold on chain? Do you have that information?
Yeah, I mean, so we're partnered with a platform, and they have 4 PSA 10 Charizard first edition cards on the platform, and those are worth about $500,000 each. And so those were essentially done as, you know, they weren't done through our marketplace contract. They were done as over-the-counter sales between the seller of those cards and the buyer of those cards. Yeah, I mean, those are probably the most valuable ones that we've done. But in terms of typical marketplace transactions, we've done a lot of cards in the $50,000 to $100,000 range, you know, a lot of our users have 7 figures worth of cards on the platform. We have a ton of cards between even $100,000 and $200,000 on chain.
That is so crazy. I loved hearing that. And you know, one thing that you brought up earlier was just like how good it is that like these younger kids are learning trading, they're learning the hustle, they're learning the game theory, and like what they're able to take away from that is amazing. I love that. I'm a big believer in game theory and teaching them when they're young. But what I really want to talk about is how you brought this, we're able to bring this on chain, right?
Mhm.
So when I think about crypto in the big picture and I think about Solana, I think of Solana as like kind of the place where people are having fun on chain, right? You know, started with NFTs, then meme coins, and now with Collectors Crypt, it's cards. They're coming on chain, and people are having a ton of fun again on chain. And I want to know how you were able to bring that on chain and really catch so much fire. Like what was it about the community that really like was open to doing this on chain?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like it was easy. It was, you know, we literally, like, I remember having podcasts like 3 or 4 years ago, and they're like, "Well, how are you bringing people on?" And I said, "We're bringing people on one user at a time, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm in Discord answering support tickets. I still do that. You know, I'm in there in the middle of it because I think our one thing that differentiates our community from most other communities on blockchain and crypto is that our community is dominated by people who are actual collectors,
Yeah.
right? We do have some people in there who are like, "Oh man, I heard Pokemon is great. Where do I get started?" Right? And those people are awesome because they come in and they, you know, the ones that are humble, the ones that are able to build relationships and build community, they come in and say, "Hey, I need some help. I have a huge bag from trading on meme coins. You know, where should I put my money?" Right? And
Yeah.
then you have like 20 experts that come and say, "Oh, look at all these things that I'm buying, and I'm getting all this stuff, and I think these are going to do well over the next 2 years." And then, you know, you have these meme coin guys, they deploy $500,000 in capital, and then like they get into it, right? And now they really understand, and then, you know, 6 months later they sell their collection and they're up 150%, right? I mean, and
Yeah.
that's that. You know, you do that a few times with a few people, then all of a sudden, you know, the bird's on everybody's shoulders saying, you know, "Hey, you've heard Collector Crypt, you've heard that we have some of the best curated assets in the world for Pokemon. We have the best experts, right? If you want to get into the space, you know, this is where you got to be, because like it is very, very difficult to move $500,000 in a card show or $500,000 on eBay, right? One thing that crypto really unlocks is how much money you can move through a pipe and
Yeah.
how quickly you can move that money through a pipe, right? So our platform, we're trying to solve the liquidity and the friction involved in moving these assets from one owner to the other.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, I feel like this has been like a big issue on Solana, especially in NFTs, right? Like I still believe in NFTs, and you know, I collected them where it really ended up being just a bunch of speculators, you know, like they weren't actually like true collectors of the art. They, you know, the price went down and the art didn't look as good as like the classic saying. Like how do you curate that type of community? Like how do you leave it, you know, how do you leave the people thinking just about the collecting more so than the speculation side?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And also it opens up the door to some other things that I want to chat about that I'm preaching about is, you know, I remember a few years ago, everybody was saying, "Oh, how do we get the next billion users on chain?"
Yeah, yeah,
Right? And everybody was saying that, and people are like, "Oh, let's these NFT culture kind of things, or hey, let's go in and bring $1 trillion worth of government bonds on chain."
Yeah.
Right. Like, with the government bond thing, like, I don't know anybody walking on any street in any country that is sitting there saying, oh man, I have a really hard time finding government bonds. That's that every single day I wake up and I'm like, where do I get my government bonds from? Or they say, oh man, it's like so expensive to trade government bonds on Robinhood. I have zero is too much for me to buy government bonds with. Right. So I feel like, a lot of developers, people in crypto on the top level, they're saying, well, TVL up means that we're going to get 1 billion retail users in. And I think that doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
Right. Because you're not solving a real problem that people have. You're creating a problem, and you have these marketing, these number metrics that make investors feel good. They're like, oh, somebody who's a fund who's investing in crypto says, oh, wow, we got another $2 billion of government bonds on chain. That's really good. That must mean something is happening. But that, maybe that $2 billion of government bonds brought 2 new users on chain, right?
Yeah.
That's meaningless, right? And then I think also, the point that you made about NFTs, obviously the NFT ecosystem started out with community and culture, right? It started out on ETH. Then it moved over to Solana with monkeys and DGen apes and all these guys. That was beautiful, right? And that's why we chose to build on Solana. And what was not beautiful was now everybody else, oh, here, let's, here's all these things. Let's go and start trading them, and let's start speculating. Let's start doing this. And you get this mishmash between, like, this very strong culture and these people who are essentially, extracting from that value. And they're extracting from themselves. You have this churning effect where money comes up and down, and then you get a lot of people attracted to coming in because they think, hey, I can come here and make a quick buck.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it's net negative, right? Because platforms that are facilitating all this trading and platforms that are doing this are taking a little bit away on each kind of turn. And then you wind up with kind of where we are now, where you have NFTs at, almost all-time lows. I've never seen less excitement in PFP NFTs than I do now.
Yeah.
And then you also have, like, meme coins, like, and I've said that, I said this on Ash Robbins' podcast. If meme coins are the end game for blockchain, we shouldn't be doing this, right? Because, like, what's the point? And what I think more developers should be doing is they should be thinking about, hey, okay, I'm in blockchain. I understand high frequency trading. I understand meme coins. I understand NFTs. I understand pump and dumps. I understand getting a narrative out there on crypto Twitter and trying to build up some community and getting some stuff going. How about using that brain on your head and saying, okay, let's go to Main Street. Let's talk to people that aren't in crypto. Let's say, okay, what problems do you have? What are some things that you're interested in? How do we use crypto to solve that? Right? And listen to those problems, and then go and say, okay, here, I have a good idea. Let's go and build a solution for you. And let's not force you. I mean, we have the technology now. Let's not force you to go in and download. I love the wallets. I'm not fudding any wallet providers. But let's not force you to go in and download a wallet and get a private key and write that down safely, or you're going to lose everything. And let's not put all these warning messages and scare the crap out of people. Let's go in and make a very easy UX and say, okay, here's a solution that's going to solve your problem. And all you need is an email address. Go and create your account. Come in and let us know if we've solved your problem. Right. And that's what we did with Collector Crypt, because everybody on our platform knows eBay. eBay was an amazing development in the late 90s.
Yeah. Since
the late 90s, there's been more fraud, more transaction fees, longer settlement time. And while eBay's growing market share, eBay today, compared to what it was in the 90s, is a much more extractive beast. Right. And so, like, we needed something to come in and reimagine how collectibles are traded. And that's what Collector Crypt is. We're saying, okay, we've seen all of these issues grow at eBay, and it's not eBay's fault, right? They are, hamstrung by the infrastructure they have to live in, right? They are hamstrung by credit card companies, by people trying to defraud on the platform, by, foreign exchange fees, by settlement. times, like, you buy something with a credit card on eBay, people can charge back and return in it. So all this kind of nastiness. And so eBay grew to be able to patch up all these band-aids. All of these things could essentially be solved by blockchain and by thinking about how you vault cards and how you do authenticity, how you do these kind of things. And that's where we've come in. And so we actually go in and we believe we are solving a real problem that non-crypto people have.
Just
and
very quickly there.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of reasoning by analogy that goes on crypto Twitter, and sometimes for worse, sometimes for better. But eBay on-chain, is that an analogy that people have sort of thrown at you at all in the past? Because it sounds like you're rightly solving non-crypto problems with crypto technology. And I love the way you're describing sort of abstracting some of that technology away from people and not necessarily giving them anxiety. But has anyone ever asked you the question of, is what you're building essentially eBay on-chain?
No, nobody's asked that before, because I don't think we're there yet, right? Like, eBay's biggest feature is their auction house, and on-chain auctions are difficult. They require a certain level of users and a certain level of liquidity to be able to do that, right? So eBay has such a monopoly on the space because they have such distribution, right? We could get enough cards, and we already do have enough cards to solve the sell side problem, right? If somebody comes to our platform and they search for a card, they'll be able to find it much more than they could even find it on eBay, because all of the cards that our users own are all in the marketplace, right? They may not be listed for sale, but you can place a bid on it, right? So we have that side of it. What we need to have is we need to have people that are willing to go in and list 2,000, 3,000 auctions per day. And we need to have people that are willing to come in and bid on those auctions, right? Once we get to that level of scale, then yeah, we will be the on-chain eBay, and we're going to have all the advantages that we have. But like, we're so early in what we're building here. And, everything that we are doing is trying to build user base, build liquidity, and build trust and security for non-crypto users. Because once a non-crypto user sees that they can buy these cards on chain and not deal with all the stuff that they're dealing with today, eBay's great, but nobody is out there on Reddit, nobody's out there on crypto Twitter saying, wow, I had an amazing experience on eBay today. They have such the community is perfect, right?
Right.
Nobody's doing that. There's no brand loyalty, except for the fact that people know that they can get distribution and they know they can get eyeballs, right?
Slight
eBay's
tangent.
done that exceptionally well.
Slight tangent here, but I think part of the reason what you're describing, part of the reason is why there was that takeover bid recently as well, right? So it's not just the user base and the sort of friction there, but also from an internal operational perspective, people see how it could be significantly better. Just because you mentioned, by the way, NFTs and meme coins, I do have to ask, one of the posts I saw coming into this was, meme coins are dead, long live collectibles. And it made me sort of chuckle, and I thought to myself, okay, there's obviously, it's not just us drawing this parallel between meme coins and NFTs and on-chain collectibles. So we saw this with NFTs, as Thomas was describing. We saw this with meme coins. Eventually, the energy, that speculative sort of panache, fizzles out, and we're left with a handful of blue chips being traded. Essentially, do you think that is a potential outcome for collectibles? And if not, what do you think is going to keep this entire economy that's very vibrant at the moment alive 2-3 years and down the line?
Yeah, I think from a crypto perspective, I think that's a fear that is justified, right? Like crypto, people go from one fad to the next fad, and they try to like hustle and get in early and make some money and do that kind of stuff. I think when you think about collectibles actually predate currency. People were collecting things before there was even language. We're talking tens of thousands of years. And this is part of our DNA, right? So until somebody comes up with some gene editing for people to like stop thinking about like, grabbing things that they like, stop going on a beach and seeing a nice little seashell that they're like, oh, that's really cute, I'm going to go pick that up, or a nice beautiful stone that they're going to put on a necklace, right? That's all part of our collecting DNA. And, baseball cards have been around since like the mid 1800s. right? Pokemon's been around for 30 years now. I think people in crypto, because they're so jaded by this churn and this, crazy, hustle to get in fast and get out fast, like people buying meme coins at a 10,000 market cap and selling at $1 million market cap, and like, wow, I made 100x. I'm a genius, right? Like, they need to take a step back and realize that collectibles have been around for 1,000 times longer than blockchain. And it's not gonna come next year and people will be like, oh no, we're not interested in collecting anymore, right? And your question about whether it's going to go to blue chips or not, I think that could be answered easily. Like, even the cheapest common cards from the original Pokemon sets, like first edition, even base set commons, people are collecting them at rates higher than they ever have before. Right, those cards are trading at 5 times what they were trading at 3 years ago. And yeah, any market has ups and downs. There will be a bear market in Pokemon, and that's going to be an amazing opportunity for people who may feel that we missed it this time around. Put some money on the side, put some money in state. If you feel that, hey, I'm getting late to the show, don't buy. You don't have to buy right now. Nobody's holding a gun to your head to say, go and buy Pokemon right now, or you're going to miss it. Put that money somewhere safe. There will be a bear market, maybe in the next 2 years. And when it's a bear market, make sure that you are learned up on everything you need to learn. Make sure you know which kind of cards you want to target, how are you going to do it, have your relationships and network set up, and be an expert, because when that bear market hits, you will have the liquidity to come in, right? And you'll be able to do that cheaper, faster, and better on Collector Crypt than any other platform in the world.
Yeah,
that's
I
fantastic.
think the cyclicality. Sorry, Thomas. I've got a message here. This is a question from the community, and it feeds into this cyclicality that you're describing. And if we extrapolate that from the example you gave of 10,000 years ago, it might also be a yes/no answer here. But the question is, how far are we from an institutionally friendly TCG ETF? Will that ever exist?
Yeah, I've been talking about that for years and years, and not financial advice. Our cards token is for entertainment purposes only. It's totally worthless. Please do your own diligence. It's a meaningless thing. Nobody cares about the token. It's not a security. That out of the way. If we had regulatory clarity, if we had a sandbox from a legal perspective that we could play in, we would hope that the cards token would be a proxy for the overall, card collectibles market. Because one thing that we are doing is we want all of the asset value of the cards that we have to basically be under the token foundation. So our Panama Foundation owns all of our trading cards on the platform, and that's around $13 to $15 million now. We also want, when the market goes up and down, we want to eventually create mechanisms so that people can, the beta, that the cards token is a proxy for this other market. And we know it's convoluted by the fact that, we're generating revenues and we're doing this kind of stuff. But I think as long as our revenues are positive and as long as we're profitable, that benefits the token, obviously, because then we can go and buy more cards to put in the token. That all being said, so the cards token, I think, is a great representation of the overall collectibles market for trading cards. I think going further than that, if you're looking for specific products that allow somebody, for example, let's say somebody's there and they say, I don't care about cards. I'm a financial trader. I understand why people collect. I think trading cards is one place where it's very difficult to get deep liquidity, right? I can't go on the New York Stock Exchange and put $5 million into trading cards, right? That there's no vehicle that lets me do that. That's something that we're building towards as well. And that means stuff like, being able to invest in an index of cards. So I don't know if I could share my screen here. And I apologize. These are all good questions, and I have terribly long answers to all of them.
No, we're loving the long answers. These are fantastic.
That's why you're here, because it seems like a yes/no question, but actually a lot of thought has gone into this. And again, you're probably the most passionate person to to talk about cards and collectibles. So I can see your screen. Let's make sure that our
I'm seeing
audience
it too.
members can see your screen. Give me 2 seconds. Doing some magic here to make it visible to our audience members. Okay, so what are you going to talk us through here, Tom?
Yeah, so one thing that Collector Crypt has been doing for a while now is we are keeping track of all trading card sales across most of the marketplaces that are there. We are building a daily the top 259 modern Pokemon cards, all PSA 10 graded. This is a square root market cap weighted index. So that means that the top cards aren't dominant. Like the most valuable card is the Van Gogh Pikachu, and we don't want this index to be like 15% Van Gogh Pikachu, right? We want to have a fair representation of what modern Pokemon as an asset class looks like, and this is updated daily based on the data coming in. This is not filtered too heavily. It's filtered to remove outliers, right? Because there are people that are scamming on eBay, and they might go in and buy 5 cards at like a 3x market price to try to get people to fooled into doing it. So we remove some of these outliers, but that's about all we do. And here you see since like September, it's gone up around 60%. Since December 10th, which was kind of a local low in the Pokemon market, it's up over 100% here since then in just the last 6 months. And one thing that we want to do is with this data, with this index, and with kind of tokenization, like you can imagine, what if we were to get an account and buy, $10 million worth of Pokemon cards and put that in that account? And then we go in and make a token that represents that account, so people can go and essentially trade this Pokemon 259 index. And then you can also do a perps wrapper on top of it. So people can now go long and short Pokemon. If somebody has a 7-figure collection and they say, oh man, looks like we're kind of topping right now, I want to make sure I have downside protection. Instead of going and selling their cards, incurring a tax liability, all this kind of stuff, they can go and buy some short perps on it and essentially hedge the downside risk in their portfolio. So these are kind of things that do not exist yet. These are things that we are working actively with partners on to build in the right way. And sure, like I could go to Pump.fun and I could go and say, oh, let's start the PMI 259 coin. But that's meaningless because it doesn't settle the spot. It's not institutional quality, right? So like I don't go and jump to any coin that claims to follow this index in any way. That's nonsense. Like what we need to do is we need to build this with kind of institutional clarity to make sure that you have a spot market that settles, and you need to have essentially this kind of like fund that actually holds those cards in it. And yeah.
Jump on any coin they see. Very important disclaimer. I'm going to reiterate, if it's not the official channel communicating to you that there is an index fund tracking the value of these coins, these cards, pardon me, do not ape into it. One of our previous big picture guests, Stefan Rust, is the founder and CEO over at Trueflation. And it's something that he's spoken about extensively as well, is taking these very long tail assets, creating various indexes, again, with select groups of partners, and how that's essentially going to be one of the most invigorating verticals that's emerging in the Solana ecosystem and elsewhere. Another interesting parallel, curious what you think of this, is an ETF expert that we spoke to, James Seyfarth from Bloomberg Intelligence. He also thinks long tail basket type investments that are curated by experts like yourself, representing a basket of very niche Pokemon cards or whatever it may be, is going to be something that's very, very exciting going forward. Do you see this index that you're describing now being something that is then copied elsewhere with other types of collectibles or niche assets?
I think it needs to have very specific qualities, right? So, one of the things about an index, if you are going to have perps and you're going to do these kind of things around it, is you have to make sure that it is difficult to manipulate, right? So if you're talking about an index with kind of super rare niche assets, like a bunch of cards that are one of ones, like, how do you price that? Like, and if it's so hard to price, like if somebody out there on the street knows how something is priced and it's very difficult, they can go in and maybe buy 4 or 5 cards and overpay for them and bump up the index by 20% and wreck a bunch of people on the short side, right? So I don't think this can be done for every niche asset class. There's a reason why we've only selected 259 cards. If you only select one card, it's very easy to manipulate. If you select too many cards, it's very difficult to have accurate pricing, right? So you need to select somewhere in between where you have enough cards traded on a weekly basis, where those cards have enough of a market cap to be able to say, well, you know, these 259 cards in aggregate represent 70% of the value of the modern Pokemon cards, right? So, you know, building this index is very, very challenging. And, you know, I've seen other people out there that go and do something like, well, hey, let's take a look at the, the sealed, let's look at 151, SB 151, sealed product. Let's make an index on this one specific product. And you can imagine, I could go in with like $3,000 and make that pump 20% in one night, right? So you need to have the stability there. And this is why it's taken us so long. You know, we've had this index now for about 7 months, right? We're just continuing to understand and learn about it. We're looking at outliers. We're looking at the data to come in to make this robust, because, you know, with the Collector Crypt brand, we don't want to put a product out there that is nonsense, because that hurts everything else we're doing, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we want to do it the right way. We think that we are going to approach it the right way, and it's going to be a stable way for crypto people as well as non-crypto. You can imagine wrapping a DAT around this. You can imagine, you know, many different ways to get this into non-crypto hands. And if we do it the right way, this is just going to be a fantastic use case for tokenized assets, as well as for, you know, utilizing crypto rails to trade in speculative asset classes that are unavailable to traditional financial investors.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I love the idea of an index, and it kind of brings like the financialization of everything, which, you know, Solana is very good at doing that, right? Pricing assets, price discovery, and financializing. I feel like that is a very good use case for bringing something on chain to Solana. So I'm very excited about that. And one thing that I saw recently in an interview was they're doing lending and borrowing on some of these cards as well. I think it's Loopscale that's doing them. And somebody asked if they could borrow dollars against their cards and buy a house with it. And they said that was within the realm of possibility. Like, is that like something that you foresaw when you were building Collector's Crypt?
Well, it's something we've worked on with Loopscale on now for like 4 years, but yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, like, collateralized lending is a big part of Web2 collectibles, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's also a big part of like family wealth management. You know, people are taking loans on their $1 million art collections all the time, because if they sell them, they incur a capital gain. Yeah. And if they're collateralized, and if you take a 50% LTV on something worth $10 million, you can get actually really, really good rates. You know, you'll be able to pay, 7-8% to borrow against that, versus like an unsecured loan, which is like 18% on the credit card. So the whole point is that, you know, we want to provide infrastructure that lets people use the value of their asset in ways that benefit them. I mean, of course, like, collateralized lending, you could be totally degen and say, all right, you know, I'm gonna lever up my position in trading cards. For every dollar I put in, I'm gonna buy $3 worth of Pokemon, because I think Pokemon's gonna go up 100% from December to June. A lot of people will do that. A lot of people will get wrecked. We understand that, right? But I think a lot of people are also going to do things like, well, I have a really deep Pokemon collection. I want to go to a card show this weekend. I want to show up with $50,000 in cash.
Oh,
whoa!
I think we're having a technical difficulty. I'm sure Tuom will rejoin us. Just to cue you into this as well, TB, when Tuom was talking about, well, you were mentioning, Tuom, you're back. Perfect timing. I was just about to say, we spoke about houses, We spoke about collateralizing cards with 50% LTV, and my risk on brain kicked in, and I thought, I've got to ask him what happens if Pokemon, the Pokemon company, continues printing, I think, around 10 billion cards a year, as they have been over the last, 4 or 5 years. I think, in fact, 50% of all Pokemon cards that have been put into circulation were printed very, very recently. So then I'm thinking to myself, if there is a supply shock, way too much supply, prices go down, someone's collateralized one of these rare cards, does then that sort of screw them in the long run? Do you see a bubble happening in the sort of real world collectible realm? And then he dropped off, and I thought, oh God, we're not going to ask him the difficult questions here. But yeah, is that something that keeps you up at night at all?
So one thing I'm a little bit worried about is, Pokemon is building a new printing facility here in the United States, and that's probably going to go online, full production, or at least start production at the end of next year, end of 27. It's going to be in full production in 28. The reason they are doing this is because it's very difficult right now. Pokemon Company doesn't really know how to get product in the hands of the actual retail users, right? Like, there's no kids, 8 or 9 years old that are able to go with grandma to the local game store and buy a box of Pokemon cards at MSRP. That doesn't exist, right? So Pokemon Company sees that, and they see like people at Target like punching out like moms with their kids just to get access to the box that's on the shelf, right? So that is a really big problem. And so what Pokemon is saying, hey, let's eliminate the incentive for these scalpers to come in here to try to buy product when it's put on the shelf and flip it to these degens who are buying it to speculate. I get that. I think, the problem is that if Pokemon just prints everything to hell to essentially make it so that these products aren't selling for as much on the secondary market and to eliminate scalpers from the deal, I think you're absolutely right that, the desire to go in and acquire these products to have something where you can get that really nice feeling of collecting and something going up in value and appreciating, I think that is diminished. I mean, we've seen that with Magic the Gathering. We've seen that with other card games where they basically go in and say, well, we're just going to print enough so that everybody can have it, which is so much that scarcity is no longer a thing.
Yeah. No, you said something there. You said there's printing 10 billion cards in a year,
That's
but
crazy.
nobody can get their hands on them. Like, what is going on here? How can you not go buy one of these packs if there's 10 billion cards being printed in a year? It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And you probably see behind me, there's a ton of boxes on the floor. Those are all boxes of sealed product, right? Like, there's so many people that get their hands on sealed product at whatever cost they can, and they just sit on it for a decade. So this product is locked away in warehouses, and the way that this product usually comes out is streamers on Whatnot and people that are willing to pay to get that nostalgia of opening up a pack of cards that's 15 years old. It's like, it probably sounds ridiculous, but it's like, getting a Premier Cru wine from 40 years ago and having a really nice dinner and opening it up and having with the steak. Right there, you're like, it probably doesn't even taste that much better than something that's 15 years old and is certainly not worth the $10,000 price tag. But people do it because it's status, right? And so if I go to somebody's party and I bring a box of Magic cards that's 30 years old that costs $50,000 and I open it up, I'm going to have a crowd around me. People have not, if they were in the game at that point, they haven't experienced that for 30 years. Like, being able to open up a pack of Legends or a pack of Arabian Nights, like that's an experience, right? And so people pay for that, and that's kind of translated into sealed product going up over time. And so, yeah, I mean, like, people buy all this product. It just sits in boxes, doesn't get opened. It gets opened over the next 30, 50 years as people are hitting these nostalgia bombs. And what Pokemon wants to do is they just want to print it to hell so that it's accessible for people, right? Which diminishes the value, long-term value of holding this stuff. And it's going to be really interesting. I mean, I think to eliminate the scalper problem, I actually think it's, really interesting to think about like NFT technology and blockchain technology to do that. You can have whitelists. You can sell direct to user. I mean, Pokemon thought they were going to solve this with their Pokemon Center drops.
Yeah.
You know, you basically go to a website, you sit in a line for 3 or 4 hours, and you might be able to buy 1 box of product, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is that botters have figured that out. And so what Pokemon Center has turned into is a new mechanism for botters to go and get, 1,000 boxes of product. It's totally failed, right? But if you, for example, create a system where you allow people to build their credibility. I mean, we talked about like credibility systems using, blockchain addresses for a long time. But let's say if you are a kid, you show up to tournaments at local game stores, you're on the newsletter, you go to, Collecticons, you visit the Pokemon booth at these places, you could build up credibility on your on-chain ID. And then when a new product comes out, guess what, kid, you could buy 4 boxes, right?
Yeah.
And
I love that.
And Pokemon should seriously consider doing it. But, again, blockchain, we've done such a great job at scaring the crap out of companies and scaring the crap out of retail people that they're like, oh no, can you imagine Pokemon company putting like, we're going to use blockchain to solve the scalping problem, like how much FUD they would get on the timeline? It would be insane. Even though this could easily be solved with this technology, they would never do it.
Tom, I'm gonna do a little bit of investor relations here with you because we've got to give the people what they want, and we talk very often, especially on this show, the big picture about not just Solana but the entire industry maturing. We love to see it. Now, one of the things that is a result of that is that 5 years ago, even, it would have been unthinkable to scroll through CT and see somebody trying to value a young enough company using, DCFs and TradFi multiples and EBITDAs and all this kind of stuff. But it's slowly starting to make sense. So I saw a post this morning, and I want your reaction to it. Someone was trying to value cards like a normal business. Now, there's obviously ups and downs to doing that, but they said the following: forecast revenue, $1.6 million a day, ARR, $608 million. Then they have some stats like your sort of 6x forwards revenue. You've got your 12x EBITDAs. Anyway, long story short, they said fair price should be about $2.30 versus 30 cents that it's trading at, 29, 30 cents today. So that's roughly 830% upside if revenue holds. Now, I'm really curious what you think of this financial model applied to crypto businesses, given how volatile and cyclical the entire industry is. Is this a fair value? Do you think it's complete nonsense? How do you think about value in cards and collector crypt?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm first, I have to give my disclaimer again, not financial advice. The token is not a security. The token is for fun and entertainment purposes only. It's an ecosystem token. There is no legal reason why the token should have any value. When the SEC does come up and give me some regulatory framework I could work in, that'll be a great way for me to kind of concretely answer the question. But for now, let's assume there's a sandbox. We're in pretend mode. I think, one thing I would say just right off the bat, is our revenue for the platform sustainable? Is it going to grow from here? I think, right now we have captured the crypto community by storm, right? We're getting a lot of new people in here trying it out. We're doing all this kind of stuff. Crypto is literally less than 5% of the overall market. So the question, instead of saying, well, is this sustainable? The question people should ask is, how do you go after that other 95%? How do you go in and bring this technology to the masses? How do you go about doing that? And I will answer that by saying we are building one of the most ambitious roadmaps in collectibles that the world has ever seen. And I'm not going to say, some of you out there listening to this know what's on the roadmap because we're talking to you as partners or as investors on it. But, whatever you're thinking we're doing, it's not big enough. And you need to seriously recalibrate what you're thinking about your expectations for this technology. That's the first thing I'll say. The second thing I'll say is that we are bringing on more and more Web2 users every single day. Like, every few weeks, we are dumping our CoinFlow wallet with credit card transactions and that kind of stuff. And like every single time, like when Dax or CTO hits the button to transfer the stables that we have in our CoinFlow wallet, we both go in chat and we're like, wow, because it's just so incredible the amount of growth right now that we're getting in Web2. And this is organic growth, right? We haven't done much marketing in Web 2. We're probably spending, less than $1 per user for acquisition, whereas our competitors are probably spending, $300 per user for acquisition. So yes, the answer is we will see super excitement in crypto Twitter. People are going to come around and say, I got to try it out. This is amazing. We're going to see the same kind of like pump and, FOMO cycles, but we are on a roadmap for Web 2 that will boggle your mind. And so keep that in mind. We have this slow burner going out to develop this other product. It's going to take years to do that, right? So that's one thing. In terms of like, using DCF and financial models and all that kind of stuff, again, in our fake sandbox, I would view us as an extremely high growth opportunity. We do not believe that we have purposefully put all of our value not into the equity of the company. None of our employees have equity. None of our investors have, like, very, very small fraction of our investors have equity. We have nobody on our shoulders saying, hey, Twom, sell your equity to eBay and rug the token. That will never happen, right? And we've seen other platforms do that. We've seen platforms sell to Coinbase that have rugged the token. We've seen a lot of these established players go in and say, oh, my token's in the dumps, I'm gonna sell my equity. That will never happen. Right? Because I'm too old. I can't go down the street and have somebody say, Rob Puller, that's not going to happen. We are totally dedicated to putting as much value into the foundation as possible. And when we can do it, when we can go in and publicly say, hey, this is how we tie the token to this, and do that in a legal way, we're going to be all over it. But, call your congressman, call your senator, tell them we need this to pass, because there are massive opportunities in crypto that are just stunted because they are unable to describe the value of their platform in the appropriate channels.
Yeah, 100%. You're getting me so excited there. I absolutely love this long-term mindset and the way that you're looking at it. Like, all right, you got 5% of the pie. That is the crypto world. It's Web 2 that you're going after. I think that is just like a fantastic way to look at it. And I mean, I see the energy online all the time, right? People are ripping packs and they are loving it. I feel like you guys were able to somehow capture the nostalgia of like opening that pack and do it online in a way that people are liking it. Like how were you able to do that? Like what was your thinking behind there? Because it seems like you guys were able to actually bring that to the digital space.
Yeah, I think if you take a look at kind of product segmentation, if you take a look, we're collectors. Everybody on the team is a collector. Yeah. We go in and say, well, how do we design this product to be built for collectors? Because, I don't see many chat rooms out there that are full of people who enjoy, opening up slot machines.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody's going into a chat room saying, oh man, I was on machine number 234 and I got the progressives, that's not collecting. Right. Yeah. So how do we take the pack ripping experience? How do we take some of this like excitement around uncertainty and put it into a product that is not extractive, that is built for collectors? And what we came up with is our machine, which essentially, you could think of it as like a choose your own adventure kind of product, right? If you want to be purely a collector, you come in and you open up packs and you don't sell anything back, right? On that end, our $50 machine, and I caveat that, we're very low on inventory right now. So we have turbo mode and that kind of stuff. So it's difficult to do what I'm saying right now, unless you happen to hit the restock before it goes empty again. But, on our $50 machine, you are getting $55 worth of cards out. So essentially, and this is based on eBay auction price, right? So if you were to buy these cards on eBay, you'd be paying full market price. If you buy these cards on our platform, you're getting random cards, but you're getting those at a 10% premium to market price. So you are buying cards 10% less than you could on eBay if you don't sell anything back. If you go and sell everything back, that puts you more on the degen side, right? Maybe there's 3 cards in the machine that you say, oh man, I want to keep going until I hit those cards. You're probably going to pay more than market price for those cards. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find the average user and say, we have a product distribution mechanism. We want the average user to pay market price for the cards they get out of the machine, right? And that involves some level of selling cards back. It involves some level of keeping cards. And we always tell our users, like when we talk to people, we say, you got to keep more cards. Keep more cards because the cards are going up in value, as I showed in the chart. And if you are a collector, you want to build a collection. So think about what cards you want to keep. Think about what you would do with those cards when you keep them before you even start playing the machine. Because if you go and sell everything back, you're not collecting.
Yeah.
If you go and keep everything, you're winding up with a stack of $30 cards that you're not going to feel good about, right? So the right answer is somewhere in between. And the way we designed our machine is that if you sell back all common cards and you keep all cards uncommon through Epic, so that you keep the top 3 tiers, you sell back the 4th tier, you're buying cards at a 1% discount to market price, right? That's how we calibrated our machine. And that's how we've been able to build such an awesome community of collectors, because they understand that our machine is a filtering mechanism. It's not an extraction mechanism.
Clear. Tom, we had maybe 25, 30 more questions for you, but in the interest of time, we're going to.
I could go fast.
We could talk about. I mean, I'm having such a massive wave of nostalgia here, personally, just thinking about Pokemon cards. But in the interest of time, we're going to get to my favorite part of these conversations, which is actually a rapid fire round. So if I could ask you very kindly to reduce your answers to 5, 10 words, maybe 1 sentence, we'll get through these as quickly as possible. Some of these are from the community, by the way, so please excuse them if they do come across as rude. Is cards a meme coin? Yes or no in 1 sentence?
No.
Clear. TB.
If Clarity passes today, what are you doing? What's the move?
Talking to our attorneys and figuring out what to do exactly to fit in with the regulations of Clarity Act.
There you go.
Very interesting. So I, just from this conversation, but also listening to you in the past, I know you're very passionate about cards, collectibles. What is the single most insane card that you've seen coming through the vault?
All of the PSA 10 English and Japanese gold stars that we've been able to source that have just gone up, 1,000% in value over the last 6 months.
Amazing. Now, what's the better asset? Sealed boxes or Grail singles?
Both. They're both amazing.
Fair point.
Okay, so what's the most overrated Pokemon card? Is it the $16.5 million card that Logan Paul sold just because they're celebrities, or is there another one that you think people just put too much value in this?
I think there's some issues around Logan Paul's card specifically. I think that card is probably worth more because of Logan Paul than it is as an intrinsic source of value. I'm not saying that card isn't worth 16 million. I'm saying that's largely due to Logan Paul. The cards that I think are overvalued, I think there's probably some cards that are modern that have just very, very high populations that grade very, very well, that there's tens of thousands of copies of those cards. And I think when there is a bear market, when you see liquidity flowing out of the system, those are probably going to be hurt the most.
Very interesting. So just super quickly on that, because $16.5 million is an insane amount to pay for any asset, let alone a collectible card. But when do you think realistically we see another card sold that's more expensive than that? Or is it going to be AJ Scaramucci himself reselling that same card for a slightly higher price?
Traditionally, sports cards have had higher sale prices for some of these grails. So I would imagine that, before we have another Pokemon card sell for that level, we'll probably have a number of, very, very famous, one-of-one artifact quality sports cards getting up to that level.
Nice. Okay. Now, what's bigger in 5 years, Pokemon or One Piece?
Pokemon.
Oh.
Clear, zero hesitation.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, define bigger, right? Bigger market cap, bigger, collector base, more transactional volume as Pokemon. If the question is what is going to appreciate in value more in the next 5 years, it could be One Piece.
Interesting. And if this is also from the community, what's going to be the next 10x category out of all the cards that are available on Collector Crypt?
Next 10x category. I think some of the initial serialized grails coming out of the overlooked kind of product, like you have Yu-Gi-Oh, you have Naruto, you have Dragon Ball, they have serialized rare cards. And those categories have not yet really appreciated as much as Pokemon and One Piece. So I think they have a lot more headroom to grow, but obviously there's more risk there.
Nice. Okay. Now you mentioned there's a degen side to this. What is the most degen move that I can make on Collector's Crypt right now? And I will do it after this.
The most degen move is to set it up, go to our $2,500 gacha machine, open up YOLO mode, and buy $75,000 worth of packs in one click.
With a little out of my range there.
With a blindfold on. That's probably the most degen move. But if you want to experience like that type of, that's called YOLO mode. That means that all the commons are automatically sold back, but it also means that you could rip multiple packs at once. Take a lower value pack, like the $25 pack or the $50 pack, and open up 30 of them at once, and see how that goes. It's insane. It's nerve-wracking.
That is extremely degen, and just to be clear, this is not advice in any way, shape, or form. You may choose to do it, but this is not something that we recommend. Another question: in 3 years, is Solana still going to be the home of Collector Crypt, or might you consider launching your own chain?
Why would we launch it? Like, Solana is the most amazing chain that ever existed. The developers, the people, the technology. There would have to be something really, really crazy happen for us to not be on Solana in 3 years.
Excellent. Listen, this has been such an eye-opening conversation for me. I'm having massive waves of nostalgia. I was telling Thomas here right before we brought you on as well, Twom, that I really wish I hadn't given away the hundreds and hundreds of cards that I had growing up as a child. I'd probably be in a very different place financially. But the flip side of that story is that I think we focused so much coming into this on the fact that Pokemon was printing 10 billion cards a year and this potential supply shock and how it's sort of going to trickle down into the on-chain economy. But maybe the real story here is that crypto rails solve some of these very serious problems that physical assets have, moving them around, trading them, storing them, so on and so forth. So thank you for helping me see the bigger picture when it comes to on-chain collectibles, something I was unfortunately not seeing the real value in. But I appreciate it. And as much as I'm not going to go and do the $75,000 degen move, I think I might go and play around with Collector Crypt a little bit. Tom, before we let you go, where should people go to follow along with the developments of Collector Crypt? I know you mentioned you got some big announcements coming soon. Where should they go?
Probably the best place, if you are just a casual observer, is to make sure you're following our X account. That's at collector_crypt. If you are interested in starting to collect Pokemon, if you're interested in learning more about your own Pokemon collection or becoming part of the community, I've mentioned we have probably one of the top 3 Pokemon collector communities in the world in our Discord. You can find our Discord in our link tree in Collector Crypt, on the Collector Crypt Twitter account, and just come and say hi. We have some of the, like, if you feel anxiety going into the trenches of other Discord chats to talk about meme coins and that kind of stuff, you will feel elevated. You will feel enlightened. You'll feel relaxed coming to our channel. There's none of that there, except for one guy who's a real pain in the ass, but I won't mention who he is.
There's always that one guy.
There's always one. Tom, thank you so much for joining the big picture. I really appreciate you making time today.
Thank you so much, guys. You were awesome.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Ladies and gents, before you go anywhere, I hope you enjoyed that eye-opening conversation. I should mention at this point, next Thursday, 11 a.m., we're going to be sitting down with one of the spiciest characters in the entire Solana ecosystem. Seraphim from Solana Foundation is going to be joining us, the man in charge of quote-unquote special situations. So we can find out together what that really means. You do not want to miss that one. I promise you. You can subscribe to Solana Floor now so you don't miss any of our future episodes, pardon me. Now, most important reminder of the day, This show is not investment advice, financial advice, or any kind of advice. I know we've had a fairly uncharacteristically degen conversation today, but don't ever spend more money than you can afford to lose. Also, we'll be right here tomorrow, same time, 11 a.m. ET for the Solana Weekly News Recap. Toumas, thank you very much, and see you tomorrow, everyone.
Thanks all.